Chapter 1. The Slave Pits of Xyphar-9. The air in the slave pits was thick with the stench of sweat, blood, and despair. Chains rattled against rusted metal as the overseers, hulking reptilian Zorathians, lashed their whips across the backs of their prisoners. Among them was Lyria, a slender blue-skinned alien with luminous silver eyes, once a scholar, now reduced to a broken laborer. Her people, the Illyrians, had been conquered by the Zorathian Empire years ago. Their planet, lush and peaceful, had been stripped of its resources, its people enslaved. Lyria had watched her family die in the initial invasion. Now she toiled in the mines of Xyphar-9, a barren rock where hope was as scarce as water. "Move faster, worm." A Zorathian guard struck her across the shoulders, sending her crashing into the jagged rocks. She bit back a cry, knowing any sound of pain would only invite more punishment. Then a new figure entered the pits. He was human, tall, broad-shouldered, with dark eyes that scanned the slaves with something Lyria hadn't seen in years. Pity. Chapter 2. The Human Named Kael. Kael Verek was a mercenary, though not by choice. Once a soldier for the Terran Federation, he had been dishonorably discharged after refusing an order to massacre a civilian outpost. Branded a traitor, he had turned to freelance work, taking whatever jobs kept him alive. This job was supposed to be simple: escort a Zorathian official to Xyphar-9, collect his pay and leave. But then he saw her, the Illyrian woman with defiance still burning behind her silver eyes, despite the bruises and chains. Something inside him twisted. That night, as the slaves were herded back into their cages, Kael lingered near Lyria's cell. The guards were lax, confident in their dominance. He crouched beside the bars. "You understand me," he whispered in Galactic common. Lyria's eyes flicked to him, wary. "Yes, I can get you out of here." She scoffed. "Many have said that. All lies." Kael reached into his pocket and slid a small vibroblade through the bars. "Then prove me wrong." Chapter 3. The Escape. The next day chaos erupted. A mining charge detonated prematurely. Sabotage, though Lyria didn't know how. In the confusion, she used the blade to sever her bonds and sprinted through the smoke-filled tunnels. Zorathian alarms blared, but she didn't stop. Then a hand grabbed her. She nearly lashed out before recognizing Kael. "This way." They fought through guards, Kael's combat skills cutting a path where Lyria's frail body could not. They reached a stolen Zorathian skiff, its engines roaring to life as they launched into the black void of space. Lyria collapsed in the co-pilot's seat, trembling. Why did you save me?" Kael didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was heavy. "Because someone once saved me." Chapter 4. The Journey to Freedom. The skiff wasn't built for long travel, but Kael knew a place. A hidden outpost run by a former comrade, where they could regroup. As they traveled, Lyria learned about Kael's past. The war crimes he had witnessed. The guilt that haunted him. She, in turn, told him of her people's lost history, their knowledge erased by Zorathian oppression. Days turned to weeks. The Zorathians hunted them, but Kael was always one step ahead. Then disaster struck. Chapter 5. The Betrayal. Kael's contacts sold them out. The outpost was raided. Kael fought like a demon, but they were overwhelmed. As Lyria was dragged away in cuffs, she screamed his name, only to see him shot in the chest. Chapter 6. The Reckoning. Lyria awoke in a high-security prison ship. The Zorathians had plans for her. Interrogation, then execution. But she refused to die a slave. Using knowledge from her past, ancient Illyrian techniques of mind manipulation, she turned a guard against his own. The ship descended into madness as she fought her way to the escape pods. And then a miracle. Kael was alive. Barely. He had been left for dead, but his reinforced armor had saved him. Now, bleeding and half-conscious, he reached for her. Told you. I'd get you out. Chapter 7, Salvation. Together, they hijacked a Zorathian cruiser. With Kael's tactical genius and Lyria's knowledge of Zorathian systems, they disabled the fleet's pursuit and jumped to uncharted space. There they found it, a hidden colony of free Illyrians, survivors who had escaped the Empire's grasp. Lyria fell to her knees, weeping. Kael stood beside her, a silent guardian. You're free, he said. She looked up at him, silver eyes shining. We both are. Epilogue. The Zorathian Empire would hunt them. The war was far from over. But in that moment, under the light of a foreign sun, Lyria and Kael stood together, no longer slave and savior but equals. And for the first time in years they dared to hope. The hidden Illyrian colony was a place of quiet defiance, a sanctuary nestled within the dense jungles of an uncharted moon. The air was thick with the scent of blooming alien flora, and the distant hum of waterfalls echoed through the trees. For the first time in years, Lyria breathed freely. She stood at the edge of a cliff, watching the twin suns dip below the horizon, casting the sky in hues of violet and gold. The scars on her back still ached, but the weight of her chains was gone. Footsteps approached. Kael stood beside her, his wounds bandaged, his expression weary but resolute. You should be resting, she said softly. He smirked. And missed the view. Silence stretched between them, comfortable. Then Lyria spoke again. What now? Kael exhaled, staring at the horizon. The Zorathians won't stop looking for us. They'll hunt this colony eventually. Lyria clenched her fists. Then we fight. He turned to her, studying her face, the fire in her silver eyes, the determination in her voice. The broken slave girl was gone. In her place stood a warrior. Yeah, he agreed. We fight. A week later, the War Council. The colony leaders gathered in a cavernous chamber carved into the mountainside. Maps of Zorathian supply routes and military outposts were spread across the table. Lyria, now dressed in the dark leathers of a rebel scout, pointed to a heavily fortified space station. This is where they process new slaves, she said. If we hit it, we free thousands, cut off their labor force. Murmurs spread through the room. Some doubted. Others feared retaliation. Kael crossed his arms. It's a suicide mission. Lyria met his gaze. Then we make sure we don't die. A grin tugged at his lips. I like those odds. The final stand. 1 month later. The assault on the Zorathian slave hub was chaos. Explosions rocked the station as rebel ships swarmed the docks. Kael led the strike team, blasting through security doors while Lyria hacked into the mainframe, disabling the inhibitor collars on the prisoners. Alarms blared. Zorathian reinforcements arrived. We're out of time. Kael shouted over the gunfire. Lyria's fingers flew over the console. Almost got it. A pulse of energy surged through the station. Every slave collar deactivated. The prisoners didn't hesitate. They turned on their captors, fighting with bare hands, with broken chains, with fury that had been festering for years. The Zorathians, for the first time, knew fear. Victory. The station fell. News spread like wildfire across the galaxy. Slaves rising, Zorathian strongholds burning. The Empire was not invincible. Back on the jungle moon, Lyria and Kael stood before a crowd of freed prisoners, their faces illuminated by torchlight. "This is only the beginning," Lyria declared. "We take back what was stolen. We fight, not as slaves but as warriors." A roar of approval shook the ground. Kael watched her, pride swelling in his chest. She had been a victim once. Now she was a leader. Symbol. And he was no longer just a broken soldier. He was free. Final words. Under the stars, as the twin moons rose, Lyria turned to Kael. "Thank you," she said simply. He shook his head. "You saved yourself. I just gave you a push." She smiled. "Then let's keep pushing." And as the galaxy trembled at the rise of the slave rebellion, two unlikely heroes stood side by side, ready to burn the empire to the ground.